Hello! So I thought I would make a video again, get off my lazy backside, take my phone down to the allotment and record what's going on there. So I did that and I came back and I found that I could not get my Mac to communicate with my Android. It always used to work. I may have got a new phone since last time I tried it, or maybe there's something gone wrong in the phone. Technology, my goodness. When you read science fiction stories, it's always like they click buttons and they do voice commands and everything works perfectly all the time. There's never any updates or, new little twiddly bits to enable more sneaky adverts that make everything else go wrong. It's just always perfect. How unlike the real world. So what I had to do was I had to connect my Samsung up to my PC and import my video files into my PC. Then I had to transfer them all onto one of those little thumb memory stick thingies. Then I had to carry it all the way over to my Mac, stick it in, and import it into the Mac, which took forever. There's got to be an easier way to make videos. Anyway, so here I am, and I'm going to tell you about what's going on the allotment. This is the view out of the shed door. So behind you can see the second allotment, which I took over a few years ago when it was just overrun with weeds and no one seemed to want it, but it got a bit much, and so I've handed it back to the allotment society. They divided it in half. The half nearest us has been very carefully cultivated by the new people, but the other half has just been allowed to go to weeds, which is rather disappointing. I moved this frame to next to the shed. I grew beans on it last year and it was very successful. You can get loads of plants. The only problem is that the wind blew it down and bent the frame, so I'm hoping if I put it right next to the shed will prevent it from blowing down again. The onions are looking good, but a lot of them are falling over, and I'm realizing that the ground is endemic with that white fluffy fungus that eats the roots and then rots into the actual onions, so I don't know what kind of a crop we'll get this year. Behind there, the josterberry hedge is still fine, with raspberries growing through it from next door. These are Brussels sprouts, and already they've got white fly curling up the leaves. We've sprayed them a couple of times with soap, but I think we just have to keep doing it. That frame is still there from last year. It's quite hard to move it because we had to peg that down against the wind as well, so it's firmly fixed. And that's got little peas in it. The broad beans are growing well, but as usual they're full of black fly and they also have been sprayed. Loads of beans coming on them. I sowed 3 rows of carrots and they were a bit patchy germinating. Unfortunately, we went away quite a few times in April and May, and so they didn't get as much watering as they could have had. Still, better than nothing. And behind the carrots, there's a field of little beetroots. I'm quite impressed with the way beetroots recover. You buy an old manky pot from the garden centre with all bunched up little half-dead plantlets of beetroots, and you separate them out, you thread out their little roots and you plant them in the ground and they flop down, they look dead. But if you protect them and keep them watered, they seem to come back and become vigorous again. I had to cover these with net because last year I noticed the birds just take the leaves, even if they are half dead. They like beetroot leaves. These were cauliflowers. The first one shriveled up and died. I haven't even bothered to weed that. I think that one died as well, and I put a self-seeded broccoli in there. That one's quite a nice flower coming on. That one's even bigger, and that one we've already had. So next to them, I think these must be sweetheart cabbages or some kind of cabbage anyway, and they seem to be doing all right. And then next to them is a mixed bed of things that I didn't have place for in the little polytunnels, and I can't remember what they are. They're probably broccoli, most of them, and You can see it really needs weeding again. We did have a structure here behind the rhubarb to put compost in, but it finally rotted away and we got rid of it. So there's a new compost heap. I hope it's fermenting away in there. And there's my old compost heap, which I took the top off and planted my cucurbit. Cucumber, courgette, cucumber. These things do seem to keep some of the slugs out, but I put slug pellets in anyway, just in case. We've seen hedgehogs on these allotments, and it doesn't seem fair to put slug pellets everywhere, but I'm guessing they can't get inside my little plastic sleeves anyway. I didn't plant the sweet corns till the end of May because we were away, but they're catching up since they've had a bit of rain. This was where I had the bean frame last year, and one bean appears to have made itself right at home, and all it needs now is some taller sweet corn to grow up. Along this edge, the smallest of all, I came back one day and they'd all been dug up, and I think it was because I planted them with a sprinkling of fish blood and bone, and the foxes came and smelt the fish blood and bone and dug them out. But luckily I caught them before the roots had dried out, and they're still alive anyway. We had vowed not to allow volunteer potatoes to grow this year, but this was a garlic bed and the potatoes sneaked up before I could stop them, so they're kind of growing together. And then here are some lovely opium poppies, which maybe I'll be able to collect the seeds from, just for culinary purposes, you understand. And here is the potato bed. These are the what do you call them, main crop. And these are the earlies, still very small. We had such a dry spring during, I don't know, the end of April, the whole of May, and a couple of weeks at the beginning of June. We had no rain whatsoever, and a lot of that time we were actually away as well, so the ground gradually dried out. And also this year I couldn't get my compost delivery in. The company I usually get it from, they said they hadn't got a driver, and so they couldn't send me any, and I was going to get some bags, and then time got away from me, and so the soil hasn't had any conditioning this year. But I hope that next year I'll be able to get some more, because it really does help also with the weed suppression. So here we have a lovely patch of weeds, some of which I've learnt I can cook with, and some I'm not so sure about. So this, the telltale windy stalk, is bindweed. No use as far as I know. I've been studying sow thistle lately. I believe this is a kind of sow thistle, and you can put them in salads, but last time I did that, hubby complained that the leaves were prickly. But they cook up very well, and if you put them in stews and things, you don't really notice what they are, and they're nice and green and healthy. This is some kind of spurge. I'm not sure if you can eat that or not. Speedwell ditto. I recognise the speedwell by the little blue flowers, and the spurge by the kind of yellowish green centres and the way the leaves are arranged in rosettes. So more speedwell over there, and amongst the speedwell there's chickweed, which I made a video about a few years ago. And I've gone back to chickweed because, okay, you can't kind of cook it up like a portion of cabbage and serve it on the side of a plate, but you can put it in soup and stew and things, and it's all good greens. This I don't know, I think it's some kind of rosemary willow herb, or some kind of willow herb, but I don't know if you can eat that. Oh, and groundsel with the little yellow pompon flowers, ditto. I've been taking a renewed interest in harvesting weeds, or foraging as they call it, and I've realised that you have to have a different mindset about foraging. You can't just expect to find a great burgeoning patch of something, you know, full of fat-leaved vegetables that you can just throw in the pot and eat. You have to take your time, and you have to pluck and nip little leaves, taking care not to take the wrong ones with the ones that you really want, because they're all muddled up together. It's a much more, I wanted to say it's a much more meditative process. I don't know if it counts as meditation. It's certainly a slower process. It's one where you have to allow yourself more than just a few minutes. But at the same time, even just a few little leaves, it's quite satisfying to go home and pop them in your stew and think, yeah, I've got some extra vitamins and minerals here, and I'm feeding my gut biome with a wider variety of vegetables than I would have had if I'd just gone to the supermarket. So this is the kiwi vine, which every year I say I'm going to chop it down because the kiwi fruits are so tiny and they don't even ripen until about Christmas. But see what a beautiful arbour it makes under here. And those blossoms, they smell so sweet. And the birds make nests up there. And the bees are busy humming around those flowers. So maybe I won't chop it completely down quite yet. The strawberries didn't work in this tub. I think we didn't line it well enough with plastic and they didn't get enough water and they just didn't produce any fruit at all. I'm not convinced that this compost that you get in bags is really very nutritious either. But anyway, I turned it into a herb garden. This is, I've forgotten the name of it again, lemon flavoured thing. This is sage, this is basil, this is, can't remember, something else. This is chives. Is this lovage, this thing? It tastes of aniseed. And 2 kinds of thyme and parsley. The tomatoes are all really late because of being away and not being able to plant them until we could come back and look after them. So those of you that have tomatoes with flowers and fruit on already, you can gloat over me. I didn't even have any leeks last year because we were away all through May and I didn't get any started. These are the ones I started this year. They're a bit thready still. And then I bought some from the shop and they're waiting for a place to go in. So that's the garden update. And maybe next time I'll get back to talking about some books. See you later. Bye.